welcome, everyone. Um, Glad to have you here today on this last LinkedIn Live of August, and really looking forward to the conversation today. Donna Hook, I've known for a while. We actually live in the same town, Wayne, New Jersey, and we. I'm trying to think how far back we actually go now. It's been a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, about 10 years.
10 years, okay. And I think did when I was at CVS, I think we were very similar in similar departments and things. And I wanted to bring Donna on today because Donna does some great presentations. And we talked about this before. We talked about the heart with the ART, and I know you're going to go into a little bit more detail when we do the presentation in a bit. In the meantime, I just want to see some people that are here. Alice Watts, not sure who that is. So if you want to tell me, just give me a heads up when you want me to put the presentation in the show, and then how do you want to handle it after I do that? Do you want to wait for people that have questions along the way? What works best for you?
I'm okay if people want to ask questions as we go.
Hmm.
I know there's a bit of a delay, so they'll be asking in chat, right?
Well, they'll be asking in chat, like it's about a 30-second delay, like Meryl's here too. So I'm going to put this in the chat. People can put comments in the chat as we're going, and I can let you know what people are saying, and then you tell me when the presentation's over, and we can take it from there. So I'm going to add this to the stream whenever you're ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. There you go. Okay. The
All
uh, the
right.
heart of interview storytelling.
That's right. I'm going to put it in presentation mode on my side. Hold on. Now I think I have to stop sharing for once. Oh. Mm.
Well, like I said, if you want to, don't worry about it too much. I mean, we all have
Just,
learning experiences here.
yeah. Now, just let me reshare because
Should I
it's,
remove it and put this? Oh, okay.
yeah, let's just remove it for a
All right. So then
second.
you'll have to add it back in then. So in the meantime, I'm just going to let some people know. Dean is here from Hartford. Carol's here from New Jersey. Scott is here from Crowell. Okay. Ready?
Uh, I am ready.
Okay. Same thing as same. Okay. There you go. Cool. All right. Take it away with the heart of interview storytelling. Now, first of all, how do you label yourself as a confident communicator coach? What does that mean?
Well, it's a little play off Toastmasters. I've been in Toastmasters for about 20 years, and they used to have a certification level called competent communicator.
Okay.
So I took it to the next level and changed it up to confident communicator
Okay.
coach.
All right. So whenever you want to take it away, you can, manage it from there.
Okay, great. So first I want to give you kind of a big thank you for inviting me here today to your LinkedIn Live. I always appreciate the invites. And I want to start with a little story. Recently, I was coaching a couple of people on interview prep and realized that they struggled to come up with stories that accurately reflect their work. My youngest daughter, for one, had real trouble coming up with answering the question, what problem do you solve? And so, after spending 3 hours working with her, we were able to mold her work experience and her skills into stories that landed her a job just a few months ago.
Hmm.
But she wasn't the only person I spoke to who struggled with converting their experience into stories. In fact, there are many. And so I created this presentation to help people understand exactly what's at the heart of interview storytelling so they can adequately craft their stories for interviewing.
Hmm.
But I have to tell you, for this topic, there is so much information to draw on. So my goal is to help people see the big picture of storytelling, why it's relevant on a job interview,
Hmm.
how to customize stories for your audience and your interviewers. But before I jump in, maybe the audience members can put a 1 in the chat if they also struggle with generating stories for job interviews. So I know there's a tiny bit of a delay, but if you could let me know if people are putting 1 in,
Sure.
that would
So
be great.
right now, like I said, I'll definitely let you know, and I'll call them up as we do them. I know I still struggle with, even though I'm not in job search mode.
Okay. All right. So now I always like to start with a quote, and this one is that job interviewing is like a blank canvas. You hold the paintbrush, and your experiences paint the picture of your potential.
Okay.
So today we're going to talk about.
Are you going to the next slides now?
Yes. Can you see the next slides?
No, I can't. I can just see the first slide.
Oh, goodness. All right. Let me end this presentation.
No, we got the agenda now. Go ahead, fine.
All right. Now you can see it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So there'll be a little bit of an introduction here. I'll talk about the heart of storytelling, and then the heart of interview storytelling, and a little bit about your audience, and then we can ask questions. First, I want to tell a little bit about me. My name is Donna Hook. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. I'm an author. I am an author on a totally different topic. It is Real Women in Real Estate. This book just launched on 8/1. So, but it is a #1 Amazon bestseller, so I'm very excited. But anyway, I help people find their voice, share their story, and overcome public speaking fears. And there'll be more information about my.
By the way, everyone is doing ones. I have yet to see any. I mean, I see ones from about 7 or 8 or 9 people so far.
Oh, okay. Good. All right. So at the heart of storytelling is an art. So like a famous painting, storytelling is an art form. Instead of using paintbrushes, it uses words and actions to reveal the elements and images of a story while engaging the listener and encouraging their imagination. So why storytelling? You know, humans are wired for storytelling. They invite listeners to put themselves in one or more roles or sequence of events, to identify with characters or situations, and it leads us to have an emotional connection with people.
Before I forget, Donna, are you going to be able to share the presentation later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll create a PDF for it and send it over to you. Okay. Stories also connect people, right? You have a sense of connection, like people here looking, for job search. We feel connected to one another.
First of all, I'm just reading here in the bottom right of the screen in the orange bar, there's a screen icon, third from the right, that will put this in presentation mode.
Third icon from the right.
So let's give that a shot.
This
slideshow. Try that. No, try slideshow from there. Let's just try that one next to the percentage.
If
not, don't worry about it.
I see from beginning, from current slides.
No, I'm saying in the bottom right, we've got that 68% there.
Okay.
To the bottom right, and then try that next to the on the left side of that. Try that.
Does that work?
No, don't worry about it. I mean, I'm gonna.
I'm not sure what's going on here with StreamYard.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Anyway, so like I said, stories bring us a sense of connection to one another, and it can increase empathy and reinforce kindness, something that we really need a lot of now. But there's many different types of stories that can connect people. There's cultural stories that revolve around traditions and values and beliefs and customs, and they may include people's history and language and music and food. There's generational stories that are passed down from one generation to another, or also impacting a whole generation, such as like the Civil War movement, civil rights, man on the moon, the introduction of the internet. Some stories. Most people are familiar with religious-based stories. Pick any religion and you'll find a story and about its rich past. There are, tribes of like-minded people, and there's also business stories. Stories also convey important traditions. They contain lessons and inform and instruct and teach us about being human, how to build things, how relationships work, how to be moral. Your brain uses stories for survival, whether you're fight, flight, or freeze. You can remember things better with stories, and they helped us reflect and improve ourselves. And we also share our own experiences and lessons through storytelling. Storytelling also ignites our imagination. I mean, just think about when you were a child and hearing a story that an adult told you, your imagination lights up like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So, but they stories help us make sense of the world, and as I said, they're necessary for survival and our understanding. They help us solve problems and unleash creativity, not just for individuals but for groups and society as a whole. And stories have a little bit of a stickiness to them. Yeah, they can have a great impact on society. For example, Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent ideals brought around societal change, and also stories of a saber-toothed tiger became sticky because they presented a real danger. Now, there's a lot of facets to storytelling, and here are some of the things that are at the heart of storytelling, right? Obviously, communication, that it's a fundamental human desire to communicate and share. And storytelling is a great means of communicating. It allows us to share our thoughts and information and narratives with others in a compelling and engaging way. And it also helps the storyteller to process the information and make sense of their world. It also helps with connections, emotions, meaning, identity, and culture. It can be entertaining and engaging. It can show perspective and empathy. Storytelling can be inspirational and influential. It can help us with memory, as I said, and there can be some universal themes such as love or conflict or growth or transformation. And these themes resonate across cultures and time periods, making stories relatable to a very diverse range of audience. So whether conveyed through oral tradition, written word, visual media, or other forms, storytelling remains a cornerstone of human communication and culture. So, but stories are not data, right? Stories and not data are the most powerful force in economic behavior, right? They influence our behavior, our brand perception, and market dynamics by creating customer loyalty. They impact decision making. They influence investor relations. They even build communities. Also, humans tend not to dream in charts or graphs or data. We tend to dream and imagine in stories, which engages our brain and creates visual memories and images for remembering stories. So, by staying aware and listening to what's relevant today, you can find stories that can help you with an interview. So, for example, let's take ChatGPT, everybody's favorite topic now, right? Like, think about all the stories and the tremendous amount of economic impact that comes with that technology, right? So, is it a time saver or is it a job replacer? Depending on who you talk to, it could be one, the other, or both. But then there are other stories that you can ask about, like what's the most effective way to create a prompt, or how accurate is the data in the free version versus the paid version, or you want to think about the influences that this technology has on our economy, and people are now spending their time researching and experimenting and discussing and debating and even worrying about this technology. But I want to move on to some other brand stories
Sure.
and get some input.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see this VW bus, right, we know that the most memorable brands are built on stories. So let's hear, what do you think of when you think of a VW bus, for example?
Be interesting to see. I mean, I think of that bus and I go back and I think about the Partridge Family, even though it's not a VW bus, but they're all going around with that bus,
Mm-hmm.
make us happy and all that. So I'm going to just check and see. Um, Piece, and it's weird because I'm actually watching Mad Men now, from the beginning. So I think we're right up to the 60s right now with that. So it's just very, very symbolic, for sure. So
Yeah.
while I'm waiting to see what people have to say, keep, feel free to keep going on.
Okay. Well, studies show that content becomes 22 times more memorable with a story, and interviewers make favorable decisions toward you based on the stories you share. They lead to an affinity, support of values, it generates interest on a deeper level. The stories will help you stand out, and people buy from good stories. So, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm looking here. So far, I see hippies, German manufacturing, Woodstock, how incredibly slow they are. And I think of Disney movies, Herbie the Love Bug.
That's cool. Yeah, some people have said it reminds them of the Vietnam War, a
Mm-hmm.
sense of freedom, adventure, exploration, a community, and a sense of practicality. And I'll just do one more brand story. So here is Apple. What story does this brand convey? If you can put in a chat.
Yep. I see one more fun times. So I think I mean, I look at the Apple and it's funny, again, when I look at Apple now, I don't know if I looked at it the same way as I did before. Here, again, it's amazing now. Again, great travels on the bus, um, high quality. Um, so um, high tech as we go to Apple. High tech is Apple. Um, I I mean, again, I'm interested to see us. I think we pretty much have an IT type audience here. We usually do. So I'll ask you in the meantime. I'm laughing here because now we go back to the Mystery Machine, Scooby Doo. Oh my God.
Excuse me one second.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So, what do you think about when you see the Apple, Donna?
Yeah, so obviously Steve Jobs comes to mind. He was such a big part of Apple's story. Innovation, I see quality, design, market leaders, game changers.
Hmm.
Think of iPods and iPads and Mac computers.
I'm seeing now. I see human sheep, iconic logo, and unforgettable branding statement. Um, and American labeled manufacturing, excellent quality, very expensive for
Mm.
Apple. Hmm,
And
interesting.
he was a visionary too, so I see
Yeah,
that as well.
yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's move on. So now the question is, what story do you want your brand to convey? And most people want to show that they're professional, they're capable, they're skilled, they're competent, they're experienced, they're adaptable. They can show growth in their career, that they're leaders if that's their goal, and that they're strategic.
Hmm.
So now let's talk a little bit about interview storytelling. So interview storytelling is a technique used during job interviews to effectively convey your professional experiences, your skills, and your accomplishments in a compelling way that engages the listener and ignites their imagination. And the people who do this the best tend to land the jobs. But the most important thing in crafting an interview story is not what you say, but it's what the interviewer hears. And this is a very important point that you want to keep in mind. So you want to make sure that what your interviewer hears resonates with them. Now, there are 3 types of stories here. There's a good story, which is about something an audience decides is interesting or important. There's a great story, which uses storytelling to make something both important and interesting. And then there's transformational stories, which elicit the emotion of your heart and your mind and cause change. And transformational stories also create a mood that creates an energy and neurochemicals such as oxytocin, that feel-good hormone that gets released. And so when you're thinking about interview stories, you want to think how you can generate transformational stories that elicit emotions. So keep that in mind when you're building out your interview stories. Now, sometimes it's hard to know where to start. So effective storytelling starts with your available tools, what's at the heart of interview storytelling, and what makes for transformational interview stories. So we'll talk a little bit about each of these. So there are several tools at the heart of your interview storytelling, which you either already have or you can easily obtain, right? The first one is your job experience. That's all you. Your resume is really a summary of your most important work, your job experience, right? The job description is, the details of the position you're considering applying for. So you can get that off the internet or most cases. And then your passion. What's your level of interest to do the work described by that job description and for the company that you're applying for? So these are some of the basic tools that you have that can start you on your journey to building out great stories. And there are a few others. So what transferable skills that you can take from one position and put into another? What specific examples do you have? What data and research have you gathered about trends or the job market or a company? And then there's templates for interviewing formats such as the STAR or the CAR formats, which we'll talk about a little bit later. There's resume templates, there's cover letter templates as well. So these are some basic tools. Does anybody have any questions about these tools?
I'll let you know as people put them in the chat, for sure.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go back one, but these are your starting points. So you have 8 different tools that you can start with to build out your story. Okay, so now you need to know what to do with them. So at the heart of interview storytelling, we have your job experience, right? That's primarily what's going to get you to build out your story. And because it's the foundation from which you draw out all of the examples. And it's the foundation from which you're going to share your stories during an interview that allow you to demonstrate your skills and your competencies and your suitability for a role. So primarily, you want to know how relevant is your job experience to a position. What concrete examples do you have? How can you demonstrate those skills? How do you make it personalized? Because it's unique to you, which is fine, but you want to be able to also differentiate yourself from other candidates who might have similar qualifications. You know, knowing how much depth and detail to get into during an interview will be important. You may have more to tell than the time allows. You want to be able to show your problem solving abilities, your future relevance, right? Discussing past job experience is great, but you really want to show how it'll your experience will fit into a company going forward. The cultural fit, your career progression, your adaptability and flexibility, and there's a bunch more like industry knowledge, impact and contribution, your behavioral insights, your confidence, being engaging and memorable, and of course, the number one skill of all, which is your communication skills. So, your ability to convey your experience into relevant and meaningful stories for your target audience that keeps them engaged and is memorable and demonstrates your skills. That's what you want to get to with your communication skills. And sometimes it takes a bunch of practice, right? Because stories don't necessarily roll off our tongue. So let's look now at what makes a transformational interview story. Right? So you want it to be engaging, like this bean in Chicago. You want it to be memorable. And you want it to demonstrate skills. And we'll go into each of these a little bit now. So what makes a story engaging? Right? It's interactive. So you can ask thoughtful questions, you can share relevant stories, you can use visuals, deliver a short presentation, you can discuss hypothetical scenarios, industry trends, you can ask for feedback, and you can read interview cues from your interviewer. What causes an emotional connection? You have authenticity, storytelling, active listening, expressing your enthusiasm, showing interest in a company, finding common ground, being empathetic and understanding to their situation, personalizing your responses, using positive body language like eye contact, nodding, smiling. You can even send a thank you note, which will cause an emotional connection. Experiential, right? What makes an interview story experiential? So, first of all, it has to be relevant and to provide clear and specific examples. It addresses the job requirement. You can share your success stories or highlight learning opportunities, show how you're adaptable, ask targeted questions, connect the dots, and highlight your personal development. You can show that you're perceptive by staying present and listening actively. You can ask clarifying questions. You can organize your thoughts before responding. You can remain professional, highlight your core values, share experience, and reflect on your achievements. And lastly, you can show that you're interpretive by discussing past challenges, sharing problem solving stories using data and evidence. You can showcase critical thinking. You can explain your decision making process. You can discuss research that you've done, and you can share leadership opportunities. So these are all summarized here, so you'll get this slide.
If anyone has any questions about as we're going through this, I mean, we definitely want to make this somewhat interactive. I mean, for sure. But so go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, so then I have like a blank worksheet where you can do this. And this is the only one I created a sample for, but you get just to give you the idea. So to be interactive, let's say you can show that you were brainstorming an issue or your team openly discussed a challenge, and while everyone shared their perspective, it struck me that the traditional approach wasn't going to work. And it's inspired by this dialogue, I decided to approach the problem from a completely different angle. So, you're talking about that story. The emotional connection is talking about, the customer contacted us about an issue and they were very unhappy about it. It was clear to me that we needed a fresh approach to address this. So I embarked on a journey to bring new thinking and a powerful tool into the mix so that, that elicits emotion. Where it's experiential, I initiated a collaborative effort to identify the root cause. We conducted in-depth research, customer surveys, reached out to some clients, gathered firsthand insights. Then we explored, identified the gap in the current tools, and addressed them to enhance the customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like perceptive. We're introducing change isn't always a straightforward journey. I understand there might be resistance to adopting a new process or tool. To address this, I organized interactive workshops and one-on-one discussions with key stakeholders across various departments. This allowed me to showcase the perceptive shift we needed, illustrating how this innovation wasn't just about a tool, it was about reshaping our approach to prioritize our customer needs. And then interpretive, there's a little typo there, but armed with our research, I took the step of aligning our findings with the organization's strategic goals. I crafted a comprehensive proposal that not only outlined the tool's potential, but also painted a compelling picture of how it would positively impact our clients and alleviate their satisfaction levels. To make it even more engaging, I created an interactive presentation and included real-world scenarios showcasing the tool's transformative capabilities. So just wanted to give you one sample to see how you can work with this tool. There is a blank slide, so you can forget that. I'll have to get rid of that one. Okay, so now what makes an interview memorable? So engaging stories, thought-provoking questions, connecting on a personal level, acting confidently, not arrogantly, and being well prepared. And so we can go right into some of what makes an engaging story. You want to choose relevant experience, use I call it the STARE method. So I know STAR, right? Situation, task, action, result. That's good, but you want them to actually stare at you. And what that last E is really just a twist. It like twists back to how you can help them, how you can help the company solve their problems. So it's that lowercase e. The bottom line just extends out. Some people use a Z similarly. Okay. Anyway, you can share a compelling story. You can focus on impact, use vivid details, adapt the story to the interviewer. You can ask thought-provoking questions by researching the company, connecting to your experience, asking future-oriented questions, inquiring about team culture, and challenging assumptions. You can connect personally by researching the interviewer, showing them genuine interest, being authentic, use active listening, use their name, ask about their journey, find common ground. You can act confidently by being well prepared, knowing your resume and stories, visualizing success, focusing on your strengths, pausing before you answer, using positive body language, and of course, dressing professionally. And then to be well prepared, you want to research the company, understand the role, reflect on the cultural fit, generate questions to ask, and be ready with engaging, memorable, and demonstrative stories. And there's a little
So just as a reminder, what does the E stand for with the star-E?
Okay. So the letter E in this case, I call it the E twist. And I'll tell you how it came to this name. I used to have a boss that no matter what conversation you had, it always went back to him, and his name started with an E. So it's just about pointing it back, but you can call it. I'll have to come up with a letter. I don't. I right now I just call it the E twist.
Okay.
Sorry. Um, I'll come up with something.
Okay.
All right. And now, so what makes how do you artfully demonstrate skills? So you want to provide clear action steps, problem solving, show that you have a problem solving approach, that you're adaptable and flexible, that you can provide targeted examples and tailor your responses to the job. And so I don't necessarily need to read this because you'll get this, but I'll just read like two in each one. So how do you demonstrate? You can understand the job requirements and prepare relevant examples and stories. You can show problem solving by choosing the relevant examples and using the STAIR method. You can show you're adaptable and flexible by emphasizing diverse environments and discuss change plans. You can provide targeted examples by understanding the job requirements and providing context. And then you can tailor your responses by identifying keywords and key phrases that will make your stories more interesting and then match your experience to the job recs. So, any questions on these before we go forward?
I don't see any yet, but I'll let you know.
All right. Is it too much information?
I mean, we have about 15, 20 minutes. I think what happens a lot of times is people have questions after this is over when and they may post them in the chat or they may watch this on the recording. So, you know, uh, don't worry so much about that for now. Just,
Okay. So, what I want to encourage each of you to do is to create 9 stories. 3 of them that are engaging, 3 of them that are memorable, and 3 of them that demonstrate your skills. And then you can figure out how to weave these stories into every interview. So this will be your 9-story worksheet. And you just have to figure out the transitions between the question asked. It's like a politician. They always get their message out. So you have to work on your transition, how to get your message out. These are the 9 stories I want to tell.
so Terry had a thing. How about star Y, where the Y brings it back to you and what you learned or the way you made the accomplishment succeed?
Star Y.
Why standing for you and what you learned or the way you made the accomplishment succeed?
Well, what we're trying to show with the last letter E is how it's relevant to the company.
Okay.
So that's the most important thing.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
So do you recommend that people do these worksheets as a matter of course, just to practice and maybe tweak it a little bit for different types of jobs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The job requirements, I really like when people, like when you go through a job requirement, there are keywords there that should draw out stories from your past job experience. And not only the direct job that you're applying to, but I always encourage people to look one level up because
Mhm.
there's a different set of keywords, but generally that's the people that you're working with. So
Mhm.
you want to go through and do a deep dive on the job requirements, pull out the keywords, figure out how you can write your stories, and then figure out, practice some of the behavioral interview questions, always making that transition so that you can share the story that you want to tell.
Would you recommend maybe creating LinkedIn posts from some of the stories in terms of engagement, or is this just something for a one-on-one type interview?
Well, I was listening to the LinkedIn Live that you did with George Pace,
Uh-huh.
and he has a really good point that especially with the technology moving the way it is toward automation, that you want to be recognized as someone who's posting on relevant topics, not after you're laid off, let's say, but before. So absolutely you can share your stories, but also make them relevant to today's time.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's one other thing that I want to talk about, which is your audience, right? So every job interviewer is different, and it's important to get a read on your interviewer as so that you can in a way mold your interview storytelling to what that interviewer wants to hear. And I did a DISC assessment, and it's a tech DISC. Sorry, is a technique that they don't measure your intelligence, but they measure your tendencies, and they create 4 different personality types. So you can consider it, and I'll show you on the next slide. Let me do that. It'll be easier. So there's dominance, which is the D, influence, which is the I, steadfast, which is the S, and C, which is conscientious, right? But there's 4 different personality types that fit into whether somebody is relatively fast or slow. They want, speed, or they're okay having a dialogue, whether they're task-oriented or people-oriented, whether they're more direct or indirect, and whether they're guarded or open. So imagine yourself speaking to an audience of 16 people, 4 of each DISC personality type. So based on what you see here, would you think that someone who has a dominant personality types wants to hear your message the exact same way as someone who is conscientious? So dominant is fast-paced, conscientious is slower-paced. So, knowing or being able to figure out how to read your audience can help you be able to also mold your stories. So you're going to have your base story, but how you deliver them is going to be really important to who's listening to you. And if you remember what I said early on, it's not what you say, but it's what the other person hears. And so if you're doing a really slow-paced story for someone who wants just the facts, they're going to hear too much noise. Or if you're just giving just the facts to someone who's more slower paced, right, they're not going to feel like you're giving enough detail.
That's a big challenge sometimes, is really how to know what your audience is and know exactly, because it's not something you always look up as easily. You kind of have to kind of read the room, I think, sometimes.
Absolutely. So just getting a little bit of understanding about the different personality types can help you, and how people respond, whether they're one word answer people or they're more long-winded, can kind of give you a clue into the first bucket, whether they're fast or slow.
Sure.
And do they just talk about the tasks, we have to do this A, B, C, or they say, well, our team did this, our team did that, and we work together. Those are more people oriented. And direct people, tell it like it is, basically. Indirect people take the S curves around the roads. And guarded, more concerned about their time, like they're very on the watch. They don't really reveal a lot, versus people who can tell you their whole life stories. They're much more open. So it is a little bit of a trick to be able to read the room. But if you're talking to someone who's fast-paced, then you want to take your 9 stories and say, okay, let me deliver this in a fast-paced way. Or if I'm talking to someone who's more slower-paced, let me deliver these in a slower-paced way. or task oriented or people oriented. So let's just look a little bit further about each of these types. So if you come up with a dominance personality type, and there are 9% of these, you want to show them how to win. You want to show them new opportunities. You want to share goals and boundaries. You want to be clear on the support that you offer, and you want to provide clear and concise data. Now, the influence types, you want to show them you admire and like them, which there are 29% of these. You want to behave optimistically and provide an upbeat setting. You want to support their feelings whenever possible. Mention their accomplishments, progress, and genuine appreciation. So you might have to do a little research to figure out what they've done so that you're prepared. You want to show them how you can do things together and keep up a fast, lively pace. People who are more steadfast, you want to show how your ideas minimize risk. You want to demonstrate your interest in them. You want to show reasoning, give them personal assurance, act non-aggressively, focusing on common interests or needs.
And where do you get these percentages? They're like a survey, or did they figure out this? I mean, how did the numbers come out of this?
Yeah, I did some research on this.
Okay.
So there's 31% who are steadfast.
Okay.
And similarly conscientious. You want to approach them in a little bit more of an indirect, non-threatening way. You want to show them your reasoning. So explain to them how you got from point A to point B. Allow them to check out processes and procedures before requiring their decisions. You want to tactfully ask for clarification and assistance if you need it, and then tell them why and how.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just about coming to an end, and I want to say that great stories happen to those who tell them, which is a quote by Ira Glass. And I want to know if anybody has questions before I put up my...
Well, I'm gonna give it a second or two because people will definitely have some questions. I've been looking at some of the chat comments here, and Tiffany Henry said that she liked the blend of Terry and your ideas. The why in your story the why has to be relevant to the new company. So here's a question that came up: how do we deal with an audience of 3 different types of personalities in the DISC personalities, which is kind of what I had alluded to before? How do you try to communicate that best?
Yeah, it is a challenge. So you have to be prepared. That's number one, with your stories that you can tell in different ways. So you want to have a mix of, fast stories, slow stories, direct stories, indirect stories in your portfolio of stories.
So someone asked to repeat the 9 stories, the 9 story types.
Okay, let me... well, it's really 3 story types with 3 stories each. So
Okay.
You want to be 3, show how you're engaging, show how you're memorable, and show how you demonstrate skills. But even in that, you want to do these stories so that you can be more task-oriented or more detail-oriented. So you want to take the same stories and write them 2 different ways. So you'll have 18 stories at the end, but there'll be duplicates, right, just written differently.
So I'm looking at this here. Even when the other party is communicating in an aggressive and threatening way, to stay non-aggressive. I mean, I think part of it is the challenge when you're interviewing with people, when they may put you on the spot or come across in a certain way. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it is hard. So the first thing you want to do is pause and really be thoughtful about how you respond. But if you have your 9 stories, you can transition into one of the stories that you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the most important thing, is to get your message across.
Would you ever consider using the stories? Let's say you forget to tell a story when you send a thank you as an email follow up. Would you maybe add one of your stories or some mention of a story in that email follow up too?
Absolutely. I've done that.
Okay, just some little tips, because sometimes when you're in an interview, you forget about what you're saying, or you should have said this, could have said that. Why didn't I do that? And you don't want to lose that traction.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about one-way video interviews, and I mean, that's so easy to forget your stories.
Right.
Just flustered trying to drive the car of that whole
I know, and that's a
game.
challenging thing too, for sure.
Yeah.
So
So,
again, I'm looking at what Christine said here. You usually do not talk to children the exact same way to get your point across. Children are people, and so are interviewers. Staff and employees are people. Everyone has a different personality, and how you say things will resonate with some, but not others. So be prepared for that.
that's right. This is a lot about preparation and practice. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to know what your key messages are, how you want to tell them, how you can tell them to different types of people.
And sometimes at an interview, you have someone there who's the bad guy. You don't even know that, who's just trying to trip you up. I mean, that's happened to me before. It turns out there was a person in there, and they were purposely putting me on the spot, and I wouldn't bite, but they do that just to see how you'll handle things.
Yeah. So what'd you do? Pause and just go back to.
I did pause, and the ironic thing was that person who put me on the spot became one of my best managers later on.
Hmm.
But that day, I remember that person came in all huffy and said, "Oh my God, well, I forgot I'm here, forgot I'm here," and it was all part of an act.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all mind games sometimes. Yeah.
I know. I had a new manager like get me on the phone for 3 hours telling me I had to get in front of the train and how I wasn't doing this and I wasn't doing that. He became my champion because he was just hearing, noise from other people and not really have any experience.
So as Linda says, thank you notes are a great way to reinforce what you've said. Bring up the comment you wished you had said but didn't remember until after the interview was over. And I think that's so important. Don't feel that you've lost an opportunity. And even sometimes if you're going to send a LinkedIn connection request, maybe make that part of the personalized invite.
Yeah. And you can repeat yourself too on an interview if you have to, if you're stuck.
So the other thing here, in spite of several years of Toastmasters, I still don't think well on my feet and tend to forget everything I had prepped with. Any suggestions?
I do. I have one suggestion here.
Okay.
Connect with me and get your free 20-minute confident communicator coaching call with the coach storytelling. So I'm on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to connect to me. I'm also have a Facebook group, which is primarily for people who have a fear of public speaking.
I mean, I would also say have a chat have a role playing interview with one of your friends.
Yeah.
Just and have them ask you the questions.
Yep. I have a whole list of behavioral questions.
So can I stop sharing right now and just be the two of us?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Yay. Back to us. Okay. I mean, I'm going to share the presentation later on. I want to make sure when people are there, we're going to respond to the comments. We will, because there was a lot of stuff that Donna and I wanted to get through, but it's so important to really think about what you're saying. Interviews are stressful enough. Having questions in advance, sometimes you're going to forget stuff. I still forget stuff. We all forget stuff.
That's right. 100%. And the conversation, I was on one interview and I think the interviewer just talked for 25 of the 30 minutes we were there. I'm like, okay, I don't really have a chance to tell my story. And she's like, oh, this was a great interview. I'm like, really?
And it's a mindset thing as much as anything else. I mean, you just don't know. It's reading the room, as you said. Sometimes you think you do horribly on an interview, and it's just a perception. It's like, what are they thinking? It's not so much what you're thinking.
Yeah. And I always recommend just going on interviews that you don't really care that much about just to get some practice. So I call them C-level interviews, not as in the C-suite, but as in, I just need practice. See you later. I'm not going to take
Oh,
this
so I don't think I ever heard of a C level that way. I mean, there are times we talk about that. I mean, I've gone on interviews too where I didn't think I necessarily had a chance at the job, but I wanted to practice
job.
what I was doing. I mean, I don't think they appreciate that so much from the other side, but
Yeah, they may not, but you know, it's a two-way street.
so
Sometimes.
so if you just send me the presentation, what I'm going to probably do, if anyone wants a copy of it, I see a couple. I'm going to put it up on Google Docs if that's okay, and I'll share the link to Google Docs. That way, anyone can just download it instead of trying to send it out to everyone else.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the best way. Um, but if there's anything you don't want shared, again, make sure, because once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, no, this is fine.
Okay.
Like I said, there's just so much information on storytelling, but I just wanted to give everyone a big picture of.
And that was why I wanted to have some time just to have a conversation because it is so much. And, you can do, and I think we've all done these presentations for a long, long time, and they can be really challenging. But I definitely thank you very much for today. Appreciate it very much. Are you actually working today at CVS now, taking a lunch break here? Is that the plan?
I am. Yep. And I have a meeting with my boss shortly. So,
All right. Well, I'll let you prepare for that. So next week we're actually doing this as a Zoom call. I'll send the link out because I want to have an interactive chat with as many people as possible. It's not that I don't love to hear myself talk sometimes and other people, but I want to hear from you guys too. So have a great Labor Day. Enjoy the holiday weekend, and we'll see everyone next week.
thank you very much, Ken. I enjoyed being here.